Between 2 consecutive losses in kickboxing and a last-minute shut-up call at UFC 281, Israel Adesanya hasn't lost hope as he once again gears up to take on his ultimate rival, Alex Pereira. The pair's 4th meeting is scheduled for UFC 287. It looks like UFC President Dana White is keen on keeping the tradition alive, as fight fans will once again see a mega event take place in April. Since there's still a lot to be confirmed, the event, including the matchups, are all subject to change. But from what I've been hearing so far, both middleweights are set to battle it out on April 8th at the Miami-Dade Arena.
Pass the feet if he wants to land something big. He's got to catch both feet, pass, and throw.
Little axe kick to the body.
And I'll tell you all about whether this is the right matchup for Izzy, but first, I want to quickly go over some crucial details about their history. Remember when the Puatan first won the belt back at UFC 281?
Undisputed middleweight champion of the world, Alex Poatan Pereira!
Regardless of how close the fight might have been, I honestly thought this would be the last time fight fans see these monsters fight each other. You'd figure 3 losses would be enough, right? And this is just speculation at this point, but even if Izzy wins at UFC 287, it's not like he'll be settling the scores or something. The last style bender will still be 3 down with just 1 victory to his name against the mighty Brazilian. So there's a lot to look at here. Is this fight significant? Is Izzy after the title, or does he want revenge? What about Robert Whittaker? All of these questions are the very reason why this fight is so controversial. But my job is to make sure I give you all the juicy rumors. Speaking of which, did you know that Adesanya actually thinks he'll be settling the score? I mean, I'm not saying he sounds crazy thinking he'll be settling scores after a possible win at UFC 287, but is he forgetting about the first 2 losses in the world of kickboxing? He'll have to beat him like 3 times to settle the score if that's what he's after. I think it would be much better if he just stuck to winning back the title. Because when you think about it, that's what all this is about. The only reason Izzy is even getting a rematch is that he's worthy of one. Get it? He ruled over the division for years, having knocked out some of the biggest names in the weight class.
20 seconds to go in the round. I don't know, Joe. Punts him with an elbow. Oh, he's hurt, man. Oh, another knockdown.
It's only fair the UFC gave him another shot at winning back what's been dear to him for so long, right? But again, that's just what I think. It's not actually about settling the scores or all that. It's a fight for the middleweight title, and it's better if the Nigerian focuses on the future instead of worrying about leveling the past. But since the fight is happening and Izzy has already made it about revenge, it's going to be power versus technique all over again. I'm sure you can guess who's who here. The last time we saw both of these gentlemen square off inside the cage was truly epic. I was blown away by the way Adesanya handled the Poatan's scary power. And fight fans can argue all they want, but Pereira was saved by the bell. If there were another 5 or 10 seconds in the round, Adesanya would have easily gotten a knockout victory, finally putting an end to the curse. But lucky for the Brazilian, he was saved by the bell and later found enough power to smack Israel straight in the face to secure the W and the middleweight title. Let's take a closer look at things though. It's what I said earlier, power versus technique. There's absolutely no doubt that Alex has enough knockout power to win the fight with just 1 strike. But Izzy is a tactician. He's a brilliant strategist. Whether you like it or not, the former middleweight champion schooled him. He had him in the palm of his hand. And I know a lot of Alex fans won't like this, but the truth is he got lucky in that last round. And if you've been keeping up, you probably remember that devastating kick in the first round of the fight. Izzy claims it shook his entire system, and by shook up, I mean shook up. His movement sort of stiffened up, and to be honest, it played a huge role in the fight. Adesanya said his leg kept shutting down after every minute or so, seriously hindering his game plan throughout the fight. But what's the point of me telling you all this? Just imagine how the fight would have been if that hadn't happened. And you want to know something else too? You don't have to imagine, because everyone's going to see it all go down once again at UFC 287. Will Izzy's technique be enough to outclass the Brazilian's scary power once again? Only time will tell, but all of us would be fools to think Alex would come unprepared this time around, even before the rematch was announced. In fact, just a day after the fight, Pereira rewatched the fight multiple times to see where he went wrong and what he could have done better. So when he steps into the octagon again in April, he'll be a new fighter capable of withstanding the technical brilliance of the last style bender. And no matter what the fight world thinks of his performance, the middleweight champion isn't fazed one bit. During an interview with ESPN, Pereira said he's been listening to all the critics talk about how his performance wasn't up to mark at UFC 281. Whether it was his wrestling, his stand-up, or his game plan, fighters and analysts have been criticizing the Giant for being too passive against the last style bender, but he has an answer for all that. For starters, he has nothing to prove to anyone. He simply doesn't care what all these fighters say about him. Whether it's Khamzat saying he could out-wrestle him in a jiffy, or analysts claiming his end is near as we approach 287, the Powhatan is unfazed. He told the reporter how almost everyone who comes to train with him leaves with their mouth wide open. They're all amazed at his level of skill and the way he's moving up the ranks and improving as a fighter on a daily basis. So when the MMA world finally sees him defend his title for the first time against the man he won it from, they'll have their minds blown after watching him put on an absolute beating. I don't want to be the odd one out here, but I'd rather wait to see it happen than buy into all the talk. Izzy was clearly winning the fight before that last sequence of punches, and maybe if his leg wasn't compromised, Adesanya would have still been a champion today. But is a second fight against Alex good for the Nigerian? Well, forget good or bad. It had to happen. Like watching a mega showdown in April is a tradition for fight fans. A dominant ex-champion getting a rematch for the title is also a tradition. And Izzy getting his title fight isn't exactly shocking or something. It had to happen because on one hand, you have fans who think Izzy deserves another shot at the title, but he should close the Alex Pereira chapter. On the other hand, you have fans who think Izzy also deserves a rematch, but against Pereira. What's common in both statements? A rematch. Whether it's good for him or not is not important at this point. What matters is the UFC is respecting a dominant ex-champion, and personally, I believe he deserves a rematch against who is secondary. Anyway, that's everything about the Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya rematch confirmed for UFC 287. Thanks for watching and see you soon.